Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we do have a brand new Kaspa ASIC miner, both a big boy and a at-home miner. These two new miners are now the GOATs. They are now the kings of Kaspa ASIC mining. We're going to be talking about the IceRiver KS7 and KS7 Lite. We do have price points, we do have specs. We're going to talk about it. We'll look at profitability, we'll look at outlook, we'll compare it to the others, and just give our overall thoughts and opinions as to whether this thing is worth it or not and how it stacks up to the competition. Okay, so if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. I'm sure you guys have probably already seen the news. They did give us a little hint that they were going to give us something yesterday. Played a little guessing game. I was completely wrong. I was guessing maybe a hydro line or something. Nope. New Kaspa ASICs, and they did officially announce the Alio AE0. Today's video, though, we're just going to focus on the Kaspa ASICs and kind of what this means, right? So the fact that they are giving us these new Kaspa ASICs, guess what? We're probably going to have a new Lithium as well as eventually a Radiant ASIC somewhere down the line. But again, we're going to focus on what's in front of us, and it's these guys. Okay, so the KS7, 30 terahashes. Okay, so pretty big improvement, especially over the previous gen. We know that with the KS5L, KS5M, they were a gen behind the KS5 from Bitmain. Okay, so this is not only matching it, but now exceeding it. Okay, so this is where it's extremely impressive because now it's the underdog. Is currently taking the crown. How long that's going to last? Is Bitmain going to get jealous and make an announcement next week as far as theirs? Maybe, maybe not, right? It does seem like we've been covering this little ASIC war between them since the beginning of this thing for like about a year and a half now. Ultimately, it does seem like the Icy boys may have potentially won the battle, right? The reason I'm saying that is we kind of saw that with the Lithium ASIC, the AL1. They kind of gave up on it, right? There's never been an update. They never even lowered the price. It's just kind of there. Nobody's buying that damn thing. People bought the AL3 instead. Okay, so will they have an answer to this? Did they work on something, or was that KS5 their last exit, right? Because we know with that KS5, they did do essentially that fire sale when they reduced that price, and currently prices are at all-time lows. So is that going to be their exit, or are they going to wait for a reason to really release it, as in a Kaspa pump? We don't know, but that is something you do have to consider if you're considering any of these, right? Just typically we know that Bitmain does tend to be a cycle ahead of everybody. Okay, so although yes, this IceRiver is the current king, kind of factor in that possibility if this guy kind of is making sense to you that potentially Bitmain may have another unit down the line, or they may not, right? This is kind of the risk, and this is the theoretical, and why we kind of talk about these things so much, because again, a lot of the success with ASIC mining, specifically this cycle, right? I'm going to have to do a video regarding that. It's been strategy and kind of thinking what's likely to come ahead, right? You don't have to consider just what's in front of you. Think of what can happen beyond this, okay? And factor those types of things in, and those types of things have to factor in whether or not you think this thing is worth it before you even dig in too deep, right? So let's look at these guys comparatively. So again, 30 terahash, 3,500 watts, 5,000 bucks. The KS7 Lite, 4.2 terahash, 500 watts, $800. Okay, so pretty much on point with the efficiency. The KS7, the big boy unit, is slightly more efficient. So just eyeballing these two immediately, probably the more appealing unit, if either one of these makes sense, honestly, probably the Lite. Okay, number one, you're reducing the risk because you're getting a fractionalized version of it, and the price isn't too much different than the big boy unit, right? The big boy unit is definitely more appealing if you're 100% convinced it's going to be good, and the price saving is pretty dramatic. In this case, it's kind of not, right? If we kind of break it down, again, just eyeballing it, easy math, 4.2 terahash, 500 watts, 800 bucks, okay? If we were to just, again, eyeball it, it would be about 7 of these units to get around your 30 terahash mark. Okay, so again, 4.2 multiplying by the 7 brings you up to about 29.4. And again, the 800 bucks multiplying it by the 7 of the units, $5,600, right? So give or take about a 10% benefit by buying the big boy unit. Okay, so right off the bat, if this guy seems somewhat appealing, the Lite would be more appealing in a sense because of that, right? Realistically, arguably the KS7 should be at a much greater discount, right? Either that or the KS7 Lite would be more expensive, but realistically, because of the price action, it needs to be as low as possible. Okay, so just kind of overall thoughts on the pricing. Let's look at profitability. On the KS7, it is listed on mining now. So this is at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, which again, if you're considering ASIC mining from home, realistically, this should kind of be the limit. Absolute max, in my opinion, would be 12. So for example, I'm at 14. To me, it would make no sense to be doing big boy ASICs at home unless things were extremely profitable, right? But at this point, we know with Kaspa ASIC mining, not really the case, right? So currently, on a 10-cent kilowatt hour, you'd be bringing in about $10.42 in revenue, $2 a day profit. Okay, so basically ROI never, which this is where you have to come up with your own strategy and how you view things. When I do these reviews and how I talk about it, I literally do it from my own personal perspective. I'm not doing it from an overall review and looking at ROI. For you guys who follow the channel, I don't necessarily focus on ROI. I am looking at yield. Yield over everything. Yield is, to me, is what's more important. And that's what I'm factoring in. Okay, so for me, what I'm looking at when I'm looking at this thing, how much Kaspa am I going to make per day? Currently, it's about 117 Kas per day is what you would be bringing in. Okay. So, in terms of overall outlook, is it great? Like considering profitability and looking at the yield for $5,000, just eyeballing it, not even taking a lot of the other things into account? For me personally, no. To me, there's other better options, and namely, not even hardware options, right? Currently, again, I'm a big proponent for doing whatever makes more sense, whether it's buying the coin, buying hardware to mine the coin. I'm going to do whatever makes more sense to get more of that coin. Again, my overall goal is to stack coins, get the most amount of coins for the least amount of fiat. Currently, as is, because of where Kaspa's price is, it's going to make more sense to buy the coin. Or if specifically you do want to mine, immediately what would be more appealing is getting one of the smaller guys to get a slice of the pie. Okay, but just factor in, though, that is currently right now in this moment with Kaspa's current price in this range. Things are going to look drastically different somewhere between the next 3 to 6 months if Kaspa does appreciate. Will it, won't it? We don't know. Do I feel like it will? Yes. Again, you have to come up with your own thesis as far as when it will and by how much. I know a lot of people throw crazy price predictions. I'm more on the conservative side. Mine from the get-go has been 40 to 50 cents. And even with these numbers, I still fully feel confident that I'll eventually hit there. Will it be a gradual increase to that? We don't know. Will it be a blow off top in that range sometime September, October, November? I don't know. But with my personal strategy, it kind of doesn't matter. I just needed to hit it one time and I will just dump all of mine, right? Because my strategy is to mine everything and hodl everything as much as possible. Okay. So looking at it again, for $5,000 to make this much profit, this much yield, to me immediately seems overpriced, right? So that doesn't mean like, okay, this thing's going to be a dud. Even considering how bad the market is, the fact this thing is making any profit is somewhat significant and somewhat noteworthy, right? Especially considering the efficiency. Okay, whether you like it or not, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at this thing objectively, this is the best Kaspa ASIC miner. Okay, it's 30 terahash, 3,500 watts, kind of blowing out the KS5 and the KS5 Pro. Okay, even just comparing the joules to terahash, 116 with the IceRiver unit, 150 with the KS5 Pro. That's a pretty hefty difference. Okay, 21 terahash, 3150 watts. Okay, so definitely something to consider there. But again, the way I would view this unit, again, is looking at the yield. So again, me valuing my yield at 40 to 50 cent Kaspa, for easy math purposes, let's say 50 cent Kaspa, 120 Kaspa a day, I'm seeing that as eventually 60 bucks a day. Okay, that's just the way I view it. The problem though, again, we're looking at just numbers, looking at that portion. Okay, even think about it like that. It's like, okay, I get that point. It kind of makes sense. It's a little bit different with Kaspa because of their emissions reduction. Okay, this is something that is pretty unique to Kaspa where it's extremely aggressive. Again, every month, It reduces to the equivalent of a halving over a 12-month period. Okay, so it's extremely, extremely aggressive, especially now. Okay, so as of tomorrow, it's going to go down to 61. Okay, and it's something that's going to continue to go down, even if the hash rate doesn't increase, which we know that's also going to increase by quite a bit. Okay, to what extent? This is where it's anyone's guess, and this is why we try to guesstimate. Honestly, super hard to predict at this point, right? Realistically, sentiment is at all-time low. Do I see a lot of people buying these things? Probably not. Okay, so realistically, do I expect, the hash rate to double, triple? At current price, no. But the reason it's hard to even say, like, oh, look at this ROI, use this calculator, is because we know that it's not based on any of that. It's not a gradual increase ever. It's based on profitability. Okay, so as things are right now, I don't see it going up necessarily a whole lot. Maybe people are replacing their old fleet. Maybe a big farm of KS3Ms is upgrading. Whatever the case may be, the issue is that it's going to change drastically if Kaspa pumps. What do you think is going to happen if Kaspa pumps? This profitability number is going to change drastically, and then what's going to happen? People are going to be buying these things by the truckload. Okay, and then what's going to happen to this? It's going to go through the roof. To what extent? Extremely hard to predict. We do know, we have seen that they do have the capability of producing these things in crazy masses, right? Between both IceRiver and Bitmain themselves. Okay, so it's very hard to predict because, again, if we're basing it off of our number of potentially some hitting 40 cents, 50 cents, this number changes drastically, even factoring in the emissions reduction. Okay, because again, that's what people are fixated on. That's what the new guys are fixated on, is that profitability. So it's an extremely difficult unit. For me personally, the way I viewed it, to me, the latest, and arguably it was kind of too late already, was like that last big reduction with the KS5, KS5 Pro. Okay, because at that point, even timeline wise, again, I base everything off of the 4-year cycle, right? So my anticipation is to maximize that as much as possible. So if I'm predicting, most likely the peak will be sometime between September, October, November of this year. That doesn't give us a whole lot of time, bros. We're already in March. Sometime between the next 6 to 8 months, potentially may be a peak. Okay, again, with ASIC mining, your biggest advantage, the biggest, value point here is the length of time you're able to mine on this thing. The longer, the better. At this point, the window is pretty limited. Okay, so you have a lot of things against you. You have the cycle working against you, the difficulty increasing against you, and that emissions reduction all against you. Okay, this late in the game, it is extremely hard to recommend getting specifically a Kaspa ASIC miner just because of that. Okay, all these little altcoin miners, very immature networks, you're going to have that hash rate issue. Okay, you're going to have that difficulty going through the roof. But on top of that, you have that extremely aggressive emissions reduction. Okay, that's specific to Kaspa. You need to factor that in. Okay, so even at this point, if you see this guy might be remotely appealing, I would de-risk or take less of a risk by getting this guy down over here. Because again, factor in that we're saying all these things as if though Bitmain may not release a KS7, which they might, and this will change things drastically. Because again, they might do that, and they may come in aggressive and pull an IceRiver on them and come in not only more efficient, but at a cheaper price. Do I see that being super likely though? Honestly, no. Right? Just because of this guy is coming out the gate a better price point, right? Which is much better than the 30K, the 20K, the 10K. My issue with the price now is based off of current profitability. This guy does seem a little bit overpriced, okay, as far as in terms of ROI, because again, that's what the unit is going to be priced off of. To me, it's definitely on the higher side, especially considering the KS5. It's down to $1,800. Okay, so is it more efficient? Absolutely. Okay, but is it to the point where it's absolutely make or break? Not necessarily, right? And especially considering that this is damn near a third of the price. Okay, this is where it needs to be more enticing. The price point needs to be more enticing to take advantage because, again, all those things we're talking about that are kind of going against you, for me at least, for this guy to be appealing, the price point needs to be enough for me to degen in, right? What is enough for me to degen in? For them to be in the range of this guy. If it's at this price point, yet obviously a lot more efficient, a lot more powerful, that's what kind of makes it more appealing. Just like what we saw with Bitmain and IceRiver, right? The IceRiver units became more appealing because the price point was better. Okay, that's kind of what they need to kind of do here. And it's hard though because again, they do have to recoup a lot of those R&D costs, and that's why typically those first batches are more expensive. But again, in terms of overall profitability and considering Kaspa's price action, where the price of the coin is, it's definitely a tough sell. Again, in 3 months or so, if we do pump, if it pumps at all, these profitability numbers will change drastically. So you have to factor those things in. Okay, so that's why it's really hard to like base ROI off of this, because obviously that's going to change massively if Kaspa does go back up to 20 cents, for example. Okay, because now, let's say it does go to 0.2, right? Let's multiply it by the 120. Now it's up to 24 bucks a day minus your electric. Now the profitability, instead of being 2 bucks a day, is now 16 bucks a day. Okay, so this is why you have to look at the yield. The yield needs to be your biggest differentiator. But again, it's just, to me, in my opinion, this late in the game, this late in the cycle, which we don't know if it's going to play out. We don't know if it's going to do that and how Kaspa's going to react afterwards. Will it be one of those that does a slow trickle for like 6 months, or is it one that's going to just fall off a cliff after it peaks? If it peaks at that time, we don't know, right? A lot of theoreticals. But if I'm investing this much capital into things, I'm looking at those worst case scenarios. And to me, that's kind of the trigger point. If looking at worst case scenarios, this thing still kind of makes sense, then that makes me want to pull the trigger. Kind of not seeing that here for this price point. Okay, so does that mean like, okay, immediately the price is going to go that low? Honestly, probably not. Okay, because they're kind of probably bank on the fact that Kaspa may appreciate. Will it, won't it in the short term? We don't know, right? But we have to look at what's in front of us now and kind of base our predictions off of that and see if it makes sense. Okay. Now as far as the Lite goes, again, price point wise, it's under the $800 threshold. So for customs purposes, it does meet that criteria. As far as profitability goes, it's the same kind of issue right now, right? So again, at a 10 cent kilowatt hour, your profit is 25 cents. Your income's $1.44. Are you going to get rich off this thing? No. Again, it's, to me, this late in the game, it's definitely a hard sell, right? There's going to be certain people it appeals to. But again, looking at raw numbers, looking at it now at this point in time, I would honestly probably rather buy some Kaspa instead. As a matter of fact, let's do a quick little run. How much Kas can you get for about 800 bucks? So if we do $800, it'd be about 10,000 Kaspa. Okay. 10,000 Kaspa. How much Kaspa would we mine a day with this thing? About 16. Okay, so if we take 10,000 Kaspa divided by the 16.45, take you about 600 days to recoup that amount. Okay, so even just looking at it from that point, again, that's an easier way to kind of like justify things. Look at how much Kaspa you could buy outright for that amount of cash and how much you would yield. Okay, and just keep in mind that this is 16 Kaspa right now, considering everything that's going on. It's definitely a tough sell, right? So again, 800, yeah, 10,700 Kaspa. So again, even just doing that kind of math, that's the easiest way to look at it, right? So again, at this point, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In my opinion, neither one of these, probably not. Kaspa ASIC mining in general, honestly, probably not. Like, even if this thing was half price, probably wouldn't be too interested in it. Okay, and again, it's just because of Kaspa's current price point, where it's at, and where we're at in this cycle. Again, you have to come up with your own thesis, what you think is going to happen. I'm going by the typical cycle. That's what I'm going to base things off of, right? I'm going to look at things more in that worst case scenario. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. But I'm going to throw that theoretical out there. Okay, so for me, all signs are kind of pointing. And again, I kind of made my mind up with this back last August when I got the KS5. Like that was going to be the last Kaspa ASIC, kind of no matter what. Even if Kaspa was in a lot better position right now, even if it was at 15, 20 cents right now, honestly, I still wouldn't buy it just because, again, those factors and the limitation of time. If this was 12 months ago and I still felt like I had a whole nother year to stack for the bear market, sure, right? Definitely a stacking time. But for me, that's just where my mentality is at this point in the cycle. Okay. So I know it's a lot to go through, and we didn't even do anything technical, but again, you don't necessarily have to go in too deep, right? I'm kind of have these baselines that I tend to look at. My mind was kind of already up anyway, but I'm kind of more just letting you know kind of my thought process throughout this whole thing, right? You're going to see a lot of videos regarding this, like giving you the news. We can all read a damn tweet, but I think I like to at least explain why. Why do I see value? Why I don't see value? Why it could make sense? What is your best case? What is your worst case? And like we explained, honestly, there's not a whole lot of pluses, right? There's so many forces against you. The profitability isn't too great. The yield arguably isn't great and it's just consistently going down. Like even just taking away the difficulty increases from X amount of units, it's just that emission reduction, right? There's too many things against you with any Kaspa ASIC. Even again, if Bitmain does release a KS7 of their own, honestly, it's kind of too late, right? So we're gonna see what happens. Let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys think anything similar? I know some of you guys don't give a shit. You're just buying them. You're just stacking, stacking, stacking. You're all about Kaspa. And trust me, I'm a Kaspa bull too. But as far as in terms of mining it, that's my perspective, right? Do I think Kaspa will do well? I believe it will. But on the mining front, which is what we're focused on here for this video, is in terms of the hardware, that's my current sentiment on it, which is not good at all, especially beyond this bull market. Okay, but let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and I am out.